Ryan.
Hi, Savannah.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Celeste, a 2018 indie platformer. Hi everyone! Thanks for joining us. Please stay tuned till the end of the episode. We will talk about the details for our Pokemon card giveaway. We will do a direct reading of your aura to determine what Pokemon matches you.
And we do just want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors. We do have some anonymous sponsors who help us out here on the podcast. If you or anyone you know might also be interested in sponsoring us, please reach out to us. We have our email address in our description.
Thank you. So today, like I said, we'll be talking about 2018's Celeste. So quick disclaimer, we will be talking about mental health and depression. So if that is at all triggering for you, please feel free to step aside. I don't think we'll be talking about anything explicitly. So like always, we do leave sources down below. We always have a lot of sources in our podcast. So just double check. I'm sure there's something there for you. All right, so quick background on Celeste. It is a platformer video game, which means the primary mechanic of the game is just jumping from platform to platform to reach a goal. So you think of Mario as kind of your quintessential platformer. It was written and programmed by Maddie Thorson and Noelle Berry. It's a beautiful take on a game that they released during a game jam in 2016 called Picto 8 of the same name, Celeste. And oddly enough, it's about a girl named Madeline who is climbing Mount Celeste. So I know that when I first started the game, I thought that the main character would be named Celeste, but no, it's about her climbing the fictional Mount Celeste in Canada. So it's about her reaching the goal to the summit, and that's all she has in her mind that she needs to do to conquer her own inner kind of depression and anxiety. But in this journey, her kind of inner self comes out, and she is lovingly named by the community as Badeline. So she has to face her Badeline self while climbing this mountain. I do like to think that this episode is a continuation of our women's history kind of streak that we have going on, because this game was written at the time by a closeted trans person. They are non-binary. So in this video, we will be referring to Maddie Thorson using they, them pronouns. And this was scored by a trans woman named Lena Rian. And her music is just phenomenal. If you don't have any interest in playing this game at all, please at least check out Lena's stuff because it is amazing. So let's just kind of jump right into it. I don't think we'll be jumping into spoilers quite yet, so go ahead and stick around if you have any intention of playing the game. I wouldn't stick for too long if you do want to play this game, just because it's such a wonderful experience, at least for me it was. But we can get into our dual experiences soon. So here we are talking about like a 4-year-old game that was really impactful to me at the time when I first played it. And Celeste is a difficult, non-casual game, I would say. It's definitely not the most inaccessible, as it does has accessibility options. But overall, I think at the time when I played this game, it was probably the second most challenging game that I had ever played. And if I continue to play through all the game, including all the DLC that has come out, the latest DLC being released last year, I think it would become the #1 most challenging game. As a fan, I kind of want to know your background with non-casual games, if you had played any, or if this was kind of your first one.
Well, I think I'm kind of confused, or at least unsure about what really counts as a non-casual game.
So I would consider a casual game to be like an arcade-based game, kind of like a for pleasure, like leisure type game, like Wii Sports, or just something that is clearly marketed as an accessible, almost like family experience, I would say would be like a casual game. Like Frogger, I would say not the first Mario. Mario is really hard. I would consider that a non-casual game. But even like the Marios that have been released. Stardew Valley, I would say, is like a casual game. But this game does require like skill. I hate to say that, but it is challenging dexterily.
Yeah, okay. So would Fallout count as a non-casual game, or would that be a casual game?
I think I would consider that a non-casual game. Like,
okay.
I mean, I think that's pretty like a hard game.
Okay, so I've played like some, not a lot, but some Fallout 4. I did play, I don't know if this would count. Actually, I don't know. Would Undertale count as a casual game or a non-casual game?
I think it's up to your interpretation. I don't think there's
Okay.
I don't think they're definitively on one side of the spectrum or the other. I'm just saying that Celeste, I think, is pretty definitively in my mind kind of a non-casual game.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would say that probably like generally ones that I would think that would be hard would probably be the hardest one being Fallout 4, probably that I've played pretty minimally. I feel, in my opinion, like racing games are really hard for me. Like my dad is like really big into the racing game world. So those to me are not casual, and those are really difficult every time I have tried to play them. But Celeste is by far the most difficult game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is. So Savanah, have you heard of Celeste before? Were you was this in your general field of knowledge?
No, I had never heard of it before.
Okay, yeah, no, that's super weird to me. Because I think this is like a game that pretty much everyone has played at this point, and if you haven't, like people are like, if you're in the gaming kind of world, then they're like, oh, I need to play it, or they have a specific reason why they wouldn't want to play it. In this round of games, it came out in 2018, like I mentioned, and it was nominated for Game of the Year. And it was just kind of like a fresh of breath air with the nominees. I remember when Game of the Year was going out and I was voting, I really wanted to vote for Celeste, even though I hadn't played it for it, because all the other games were huge AAA releases like Red Dead Redemption 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the new Spider-Man game at the time. So I was really wanted to vote for Celeste. And I actually might have, because I didn't play any of those other big releases either at the time. It's also very strange to me that you haven't heard of it, just because at least I feel like movies kind of enter the popular zeitgeist, and you can kind of have a passing knowledge of movies that are coming in and out, but that's not the same for like video games. And it kind of to an extent is the same for books, because if there's like a big book out, you hear about that too. But video games, I feel like, do seem a little bit secluded. And I'm not sure if you feel like you're gatekept or what that's like, but I'm kind of in the knowledge. So I don't know what it's like to be outside looking in.
I mean, like in my friend group, I'm not friends with a lot of people who play video games. Like in general, I mean, apart from my boyfriend who plays video games, but even still, even though he had heard of it before, he never mentioned it to me. I think just most of my friends, if they play games, they play casual games. So I don't know. I think I have felt partly gatekept by the game community in some ways, but I would assume that probably just by nature of who I surround myself with, that's why I had never heard of it before.
Right. I mean, you are friends with me.
Well, why didn't you ever tell me about it?
And I just assume you're not interested in it. You're also friends. I mean, a lot of our family plays video games. I mean, we have a cousin as well who also Twitch streams video games. My brothers play video games. I mean, from what I think, like most of your family plays video games, Savanah. So I guess it's just, it's a little bit you, I'm going to say.
No one talks to me about them. Oh, you know what I did just also remember? Another hard game that I would say that I've played is Super Smash Brothers. Mm. And whenever the family gets together and plays that game, I just feel so alone. Like, that's the moment when I feel the most excluded from our family, because everybody likes to play it and is really good at it, and I am just not good at it because that's a skill set that I do not have. So then I just I'll start sitting by myself on the couch. Then I'll have to go talk to the grown-ups because I get bored.
You know, what's funny is that Sakurai, like the creator of Super Smash Brothers, he intentionally made the game so casuals can play it. And he has a war with the competitive community where he doesn't want the game to be too competitive because he wants it to be a family-oriented casual game. So
it's not casual. At least not for me.
But yeah, I'm really glad to have your perspective on this podcast for video games, just because I think it's really fun to look at your perspective. I watched this really great series. Shout out to Rasputin. He does a whole series of YouTube videos where he makes his wife play video games, and she's not a gamer at all. And it's a really quite charming series of what it's like from her eyes to play video games for a non-gamer. So kind of jumping into, still non-spoilers, just like the mechanics of Celeste and how you play as Madeline and how you climb this mountain. I replayed it recently and I was trying to look at it from your eyes and really trying to think of, okay, would this puzzle make sense to someone who's never encountered a puzzle like this before? Or would this control make sense? Or even just the way that Madeline's hair changes color when you use your dash. There's a lot of different things that the programmer put in there to kind of telegraph to the player what you're supposed to do. And I thought on my first playthrough it was done pretty well. I did have to look up some puzzles on my first playthrough, but my second time through, not a problem for me, and I had a lot more fun on my second playthrough, I have to say. So, Savanah, how did the game feel to you? Did it feel fair?
Yeah, I would say it felt fair. So, I mean, I really, really struggled with it. It was really hard for me. But I feel like somebody who knows how to play those types of games, I feel like it probably would have been fair for them. I don't feel like that game was made for me or made for people like me. So that's why I feel like it's fair.
Did you go into the game knowing it was hard? I can't recall if I told you.
Yes, because as soon as you mentioned it, because my boyfriend was sitting next to us, he was like, don't make her play it. It's too hard. So immediately I knew it was going to be challenging, although I did not know what type of game it was going to be. I had no idea going into it what it was going to be at all.
I'm glad you weren't expecting it. I kind of want you to tell me about what it was like to play through that tutorial and kind of learning the controls for you and what that journey was like.
I feel like it was really difficult because, like I kind of mentioned and you kind of said, like, I feel like these types of games are a skill, and I have never had to do anything like that where I have to, like, practice that dexterity and hit buttons in a certain way. Even with, like, the tutorial and it explaining to me what to do, I still struggled a lot trying to just even figure out what I was supposed to be doing at all. Or not even necessarily, like, the button combinations of trying to, like, jump or dash, just, like, even just knowing where to go in general. Like, I had no understanding of what I was supposed to be doing, I guess, in the beginning.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I mean, there's really only 3 buttons. There's jump, there's dash, and there's climb/cling. It's in the same button. To me, those are all very simple mechanics that are implemented in kind of a nuanced, challenging way. So I have played platformers before, like Mario. So when I played it, I guess it was really familiar to me. And I just had to, like, wrap my mind around how challenging it was and how precise I had to be.
We're coming from a place where normally when I play a game like Super Smash Brothers or something, I'm just wildly hitting buttons that I don't know what they do. And I'm just panicking. So this was like the first time that I ever had to actually, like, think about what I was doing, because I've also never really played very many games where I was, like, actually trying to win, like, or like going into this podcast I was like, okay, well, I have to beat the game because of the podcast. I don't think I've ever had that actual mentality, because I think I've just always assumed I'd never be able to beat a game ever.
I'm really glad you did. I'm really glad you did. I'm over the moon, honestly. Welcome with open arms. I want to know if there was any puzzles that were particularly challenging for you. Like when I first played the Mirror Temple chapter, where you dash through the space cubes, it took me a while to understand how to dash. Like, I could dash diagonal through those space cubes. Like, it took me a really long time to figure that out.
That was also very confusing to me. I think the one with the hotel with Mr. Oshiro, that one was hard for me. It took me a while to, like, figure out what I was supposed to be doing with the towels, specifically just, like, in the room where you go to, like, talk to him. Like, that whole room was just, like, a complete maze almost. So that was confusing to me. I think also just, like, the ones kind of towards the end where, like, there was, like, those, like, orb things that you had to, like, jump to get to that would kind of, like, bounce you around or things like that. When I first saw those, I was, like, confused about what I was supposed to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 different orbs. There's the one that just kind of give you a brief dash to the ones that shoot you all the way through. And then there's the other one near the end where you team up. Never mind. Spoilers, but pretty much there's one near the end. Like, when I was playing it, I was like, is Savanah even going to understand? Because the first button that you run into at the Mirror Temple, you have to dash down into. Like, you don't just stand on the button. And I was like, Savanah gonna get this?
Yeah. A lot of times when it, like, that in particular, I only figured it out by accident. Like, I was just like, okay, I gotta figure, I'm supposed to do something with this. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just gonna start hitting buttons and see what works. And then eventually I figured out that that's what you're supposed to do. But it took me like a good amount of time to figure that out.
For me, Celeste is a pretty linear experience, so I didn't have super trouble. I did get lost a couple of times and confused about where to go in my first playthrough, like maybe I'd say a handful of times. But I mean, the secret rooms are just for strawberries. Did you try to collect the collectibles, the strawberries at all, or did you say to them?
I did end up trying to get some of the strawberries, but only because I ended up having like the assists on to help me. And it was more so just kind of by like accident when I was still just trying to figure out where I was supposed to go that I would end up finding the strawberries, and then they were easier for me to get because I had the assists on. But it did seem, I was kind of confused by this, if there was like other collectibles in the game that you could not get if you had the assists on. Is that correct?
I actually don't know that one. There are other collectibles.
Like the hearts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you can get those without the assist or without the assist, because I know they are blocked off to you if you don't do something, or I don't know. I've had trouble getting those too. And I don't know. I didn't have the assists on, and I'm not sure what was blocking my path from those. I think you have to collect prior crystal hearts in order to get them, because you have to collect them in order. So if you miss one, then you can't get the other ones. So I don't think you're blocked off. Okay. Yeah, they're pretty good about accessibility. So just final thoughts on accessibility, and you just said you had the assist on. So did you feel like the game still didn't telegraph well enough for you as a first player? Like, what's kind of your final thoughts there?
Well, I definitely would not have been able to get through it without the assists. Like, I'm sure eventually, after much practice, I would have been able to get through it. But in like this 2-week time span of trying to play it for the podcast, I would not have been able to get through it without the assists. Although even with the assists, it was still hard for me sometimes. Like, even with being able to dash as many times as I wanted or without dying, just figuring out the puzzles by themselves sometimes was just confusing enough. Or not confusing, but like challenging enough for me. Mm-hmm. So I think it's nice that they make that option available to people.
Yeah, and we can elaborate that a little bit down the line too. The first time I played it, I would say that a lot of it was telegraphed well enough for me. In particular, I really struggled with the stones that you have to dash into that chase you. It took me a while to figure those out. It took me a while to figure out, like I said, the space cubes that you dash through. So there were a couple aspects that were new to me to this game that I hadn't seen elsewhere. And I'm sure if I played more in the platformer genre, it would be like, oh, it's like this, it's like blank, but So anyways, I want to get into the themes of Celeste. So here we're probably going to talk more into spoilers. So if you care about spoilers, go ahead and feel free to leave us. Like I said, I don't think spoilers are super relevant to this game just because I think it's more in playing it and experiencing it, and you kind of know how the game's going to end when you start it. At least I feel like you did. So goodbye. So themes of Celeste. I think the theme is kind of encapsulated in this little postcard that you get from your mother between loading screens, between levels. And it says, "You cannot outrun your own reflection." And I find that quote to be pretty telling of the entire experience together. So I want to hear from you first, Savannah, what you got out of it.
I mean, it seemed very much like, the general theme is to overcome like this particular struggle that Madeline was facing, and just like, I guess, embracing all of the parts of you in order to do that. That was the main message that I got.
And I think I didn't know this until very recently, that Madeline is confirmed by their creator as a trans woman. So in playing it in that light as well, it kind of opens it up a little bit more to read a bit deeper into it, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. But I really do like that reading of it as well. Do you think it was too on the nose?
No, I don't think so, because I knew going into it that it was about like mental health and overcoming that, because you had mentioned that to me. But if you didn't tell me that, I don't think that would have been like as obvious from the beginning. I think it would have been like a nice ride of figuring that out.
Yeah, unfortunately, the message is kind of spelled out in every single review that you read. It's like, what an amazing game, nuanced take on the platformer genre with a great message about overcoming anxiety and depression. It's always that. That's always the review. And it's true every time, which is really sad. So for me, this game is like the epitome of Marshall McLuhan's famous quote, like the medium is the message. Has everyone heard that by now? I feel like it's taught to me in like every single class, like the very first day I ever step in my communications class. Have you heard of that, Savanah?
Yeah, in most art history classes of contemporary art, I would say that you do hear that.
Yeah, like at least like 500 times. So for me, this game is like the epitome of that. I think that this concept, like this feeling that this game creates of this message, could not exist without it being a video game.
Agreed. Well, I guess I have a question. What if it was like a board game, though?
I don't think so. I don't think it could be replicated in a board game because with video games, you get that real-time feedback. And with board games, you do not necessarily get real-time feedback. I wanted to ask you, I feel like video games are like I said it's the epitome of the medium is the message when done right. I feel like the video games are like the epitome of experiencing art. I really do feel this way. I mean, I feel like movies come close, for me at least, for my own personal experiences, but video games just have a way of putting you into the world so that you experience it yourself. I experienced so much frustration with Celeste and so much self-doubt, and I played it at a time where I really wanted to quit my job. Everything was aligning. I was really struggling to go to work and wake up every day, and Celeste really just came to me at the prime moment. I don't know what it was like for you to play Celeste, if you found those parallels, and if you really feel like you lived this message.
Well, I guess I found it kind of ironic because I was struggling so much to play the game that I kept feeling like I can't do this, which is kind of funny since like that's like part of the game is like her overcoming it. So I felt like in a sense I was overcoming something just through playing the game. I feel like though there probably could have been times in my life when I would have like really latched on to like that feeling of overcoming something in particular.
And it was weird for me because I played it once and then I played it a second time for this playthrough, and I played it on different save files. And my first time playing through, I had like deaths in the hundreds for everyone, at least 200 deaths for each one. In the last level, I had like 600 deaths. So it was pretty crazy. But with this one, in my second playthrough, and I feel like myself, I'm in a much better place from when I worked my insurance job. And yeah, working in insurance really took a toll on me. But I feel like I'm overall a lot happier with where I am. And I played this again and it wasn't as hard for me. I didn't have to think as much, and all of my deaths were cut in half. So I felt like I got to see, even now, kind of a different experience playing it, playing the same game, just because I got to see how much I've kind of improved as a person just from like a year ago when I played this for the first time. So I kind of wanted to go through the different characters and what you kind of got out of them. So for me, Mr. Oshiro is the most complicated character. He runs the Celestial Resort Hotel in the 3rd level. When Madeline is trying to climb the mountain, she runs into this resort, and Mr. Oshiro is trying to make her to stay there. And I personally kind of struggle with my feelings with Mr. Oshiro. I feel like he is the most complicated because he's not really black or white per se. So I just kind of want to get your read out of him.
I guess when you say black and white, like, can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Like, is he kind of an antagonist? Is he not an antagonist? Am I supposed to side with Badeline, or am I supposed to side with Madeline? I wasn't sure.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't necessarily feel like he was complicated. I think I felt pretty confident in siding with Madeline and her feelings with Mr. Oshiro. Maybe that's just because that's more so how I am as a person. Although I did feel kind of, I guess, maybe like disappointed by the arc a little bit. Like, I felt like I wanted Badeline to kind of come more around to him, which I guess she kind of did, like, in the end, but I think I just wanted more of a resolution with that.
But Badeline ended up being right. It was better for Madeline to ultimately, like, get up and ditch Oshiro just for her own self and her own journey. So I guess that's where I find because I would want to stay and help Mr. Oshiro too. I would want to help clean, but I mean, that's really not Madeline's problem.
No. I guess I just felt like I didn't know, like, what the alternative would be necessarily in the game. So that's why I didn't necessarily feel like it was, like, such a bad idea to stay. Like, obviously that's not the goal. Like, her goal is to climb the mountain. Like, she should be staying on track with her goal. But I guess I didn't necessarily feel like that's what it was. I more so just felt like, I guess I felt frustrated with how Badeline was mean to him. And then I felt like there wasn't really like an apology that happened after that. There was some implied apologies, but no actual apologies. And I'm a big fan of actual apologies.
I guess that's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, Badeline is part of Madeline. So I think it kind of balances out. I don't know if we should necessarily view them as two different characters. I think that's a little bit wishy-washy for me as to if we should view them as two different characters or kind of parts of the same character. But I think the general consensus in kind of people who play this part of the game get the takeaway that you shouldn't always try to help people, because helping people could make things worse and kind of feed into what already is unhealthy for them. And you saw just one mistake, right? And Mr. Oshiro exploded, and they call them dust bunnies, the little red orbs that kind of float around, continue to like clog up the whole of the level, just from that one little mishap. And I guess I wouldn't call it a little mishap, but just those unkind words from Badeline. I don't know if you can think of any real life parallels where you've had to step aside and not help someone just because it wasn't good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I struggle with that like on the daily, basically. Like, I am definitely an over giver with people. I could think of many times like while I was in graduate school where I just was overextending myself with like helping other people with their projects and then not having enough time to work on my own projects, or just not having any time to like relax. I basically do that with like most people in my life, and it's something that I personally am working on, of like, one, not enabling people to continue their bad habits, and two, just also like prioritizing myself more in general.
I feel like I'm a lot better at it now than I was too. I really prioritize my own comfort. I'm a hedonist kind of through and through, and I really value my alone time and my self goals of just laying in bed and reading all day. So I think it's a lot easier for me now to prioritize and say no to people, and even just not hanging out with people as a form of helping myself. So I think I'm more on the side of Badeline here. Not so much her tactics, but I understand where Badeline is coming from.
Yeah. No, I can see where she's coming from also.
So that's why Mr. Oshiro is just so complicated to me, because I can flip-flop either day.
I feel like I was most confused by Granny, I guess you could say, just because I felt like I didn't really understand her purpose necessarily in the story. Like, apart from her just being like somebody who's antagonizing Madeline and that maybe kind of driving her in a way. But then I just really didn't understand at the end how it kind of like came around, and then they were friends, or like Granny was supportive of Madeline all of a sudden. Like, it didn't make sense to me why she would just suddenly be nice. And I didn't really like her character, I guess, because of that. Like, I just felt like I didn't see the point of her being there.
For me, I think Granny became more supportive when Madeline fell off Celeste Mountain near the end there before the final chapter. I think it became clear that Granny was just saying, like, a lot of people try to climb this mountain, you know, but it's okay. You can leave and come back if you need to. And she was kind of there because she's seen a lot of folk like Madeline who have had the same struggle, and a lot of people do have this struggle. And that's kind of her role, as she's seen it all and she's here, but I mean, she may not be the most supportive in the beginning. She kind of grew on me in this playthrough. I think I too was confused upon my initial viewing. I know in the DLC, which I have not played because it's too hard for me, I probably will play it in assist mode someday, that Granny does pass. And Madeline has a whole kind of DLC section called Farewell, where she has to platform her way through her feelings of grief, which we will not tackle here because neither of us have played it. On the topic of theming, I just kind of wanted to know in general, what was your favorite level, and what kind of hit home for you the most as far as theming and messaging goes?
I think the theming that resonated with me the most was chapter, it's probably chapter 5 or no, probably 6, wherein Madeline, like, just realizes that she has to, like, work together with the other half of her. Actually, no, not even at that part. Like, when she realizes that Madeline was really trying to help her, I guess. Which chapter was that? Like the campfire one, maybe? I'm not sure. But I feel like that particular section resonated with me the most because, like, me as a person who has struggled with anxiety and depression, like, one of the things that I've learned, like, in therapy is to think about your anxiety and depression and think about what are the good things that it's brought you in your life, and try to, like, view it from that point of view. And I found that process to be really helpful and to just help me, like, to get through those feelings. So that's, I think, the part that really resonated with me the most.
Yeah, I think that it's done really well, the coming together with Madeline and to get that kind of signified difference with the hair color change when it goes to pink. I don't know if you realize, but in non-assist mode, you get a double dash instead of just a single dash for the end level, to just signify that you're more powerful.
No, I didn't know that. I also, when her hair changed color, I literally was just, like, confused. Like, I was like, I thought her hair was red. Now it's pink. Maybe I was just wrong this whole time.
Yeah, no, her hair is red, and Madeline's is purple. So together when they go pink, and then when you're playing on non-assist mode, when you dash once, Madeline's hair turns red. When you dash another time, her hair turns blue to signify that you're out of dashes. So that's to signal to the player that you have a second dash and you're more powerful because Madeline is with you now and you've accepted her.
What about you, Ryan?
So for me, the most kind of atmospheric and the level that's stuck with me the most as far as, like, thinking about is the mirror temple level where you are with Theo. And it's just really claustrophobic, and there's those weird, like, eye things that chased you. And in that level, I wasn't sure where I was going. I wasn't sure where I was going at all at any given point. I thought I was missing so many things, and I just had that feeling of, oh my God, I'm never going to get out of here. And it was really quite hopeless. But then you do see Theo, and you realize that you're not hopeless and you can help him, and you feel really proud of yourself, I think, for making it out of that level in particular, because it's just so dark and dreary and claustrophobic and soul-sucking. So I had that experience, and I was really proud of myself for making it out of that level.
I feel like that level was particularly nice because in the beginning, they show, like, Madeline on the phone, and she's talking to somebody, and it seems like, I don't think they said who it was that she was talking to, but they were kind of, like, upset with her, it seemed like, for something maybe that she had said or done in the past. And so that particular part of the game felt very, like, redemptive, I guess, like, that now that she's able to help somebody while also helping herself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of helping her in return because you do need Theo to get past certain puzzles and whatnot. Man, there's a puzzle in there that got me even the second playthrough. I, like, almost had to look it up. It was real rough. But kind of the ultimate question and all this is building up to for me is, does the theming and the message fall flat in comparison to real life? Like, does it kind of ring hollow? I think the answer is obvious for me. I feel like this game literally helped me in real life. I really do. I might have quit my job earlier if I hadn't played this game. Yeah, that's where I stand.
I think I felt a little conflicted because on the one hand, I like that the game, like, frequently said, like, oh, this is something that you're going to have to live with. I guess, like, Madeline is going to live with Madeline for the rest of her life, more than likely. And I like that because I felt like that is, like, realistic often to people's mental health journey. But on the same time, like, they were also, like, it was like a journey that had, like, a beginning and an end in a way. So I didn't necessarily feel like that rang true to what it feels like to be dealing with these types of mental health issues. But I don't know, I like that they do have, like, those kind of, like, epilogue parts to show, like, maybe that continuation. But I don't know, I felt kind of torn, I guess. I'm sure, though, that if I had played the game, like, in a time in my life, then that, like, would have, like, really rang true to me. But at this present moment, I did not necessarily feel, like, connected to the game as I was playing it. But I felt like I had an appreciation for it because I've never have really like played another game that touched on these issues. And I feel like it would be a really great entry point maybe for somebody just to begin like even having those conversations with themselves. I really like the part when Madeline and Theo were talking around the fire, and they, like, Theo said something to Madeline about like, oh, have you ever talked to somebody before about how you're feeling? And Madeline was like, no, I don't. And then Theo was like, oh, that must be really hard to just keep all of this inside all the time and not talk to somebody. And so I liked that it felt like it was kind of actually putting in like real world messages that would actually just be helpful to people probably if they had never been presented before, or if they don't have people to talk to, then they have this game to almost talk to in a way to help them see some options of ways of looking at things and maybe encourage them to seek help or reach out to other people.
Yeah, and depression and isolation is really prominent in the gaming community. So I do think this game really rang true for a lot of people at the time, and it just really entered the zeitgeist in a way that a lot of games haven't. I think that a close comparison, I haven't played it, maybe one day we can, it's supposed to be Grease, and that covers more grief and depression. And I know that game is specifically designed for non-gamers and to be not challenging and anxiety-free. So maybe we can play that game one day.
Yeah, maybe that would be better for me.
No, I agree. I don't think Celeste rings hollow for me at all. And I liked how at one point the feather mechanic that they teach you for breathing, and that doesn't work one time in the game. Like, it's not just a solve all. Like, Madeline tries to always go back to the feather, and Madeline comes out of her little bubble art and is like, you think that's going to stop me? And it just felt really realistic when you are trying to calm yourself down and feel better. And it doesn't work, even though you've tried your best and you're using your tools, but it doesn't always work.
As an aside, I hated that feather. That was really hard for me. Like, that was an instance in the game where I was like, what am I supposed to be doing with this feather? I don't understand what's happening right now. And it took me a very long time the first time that the feather was introduced to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. And I just about gave up at playing at that point, which was just so ironic because of the purpose of like what the feather was supposed to symbolize.
All right, well, moving on. I wanted to talk more about failure, which is kind of another theme, but it's more of like a prevalent theme. And it's not like so much in the game. Like, I don't think Madeline is, at least I don't get the feeling that she's climbing this mountain for just an overwhelming sense of like failure. But I do feel like it puts the feeling of failure on the player itself. So I wanted to go over this well-known phenomenon in multiple studies called attribution asymmetry, where you kind of attribute your failure to different things. So you're more likely to attribute success to your own personal worth. Like, I did well on this test because I'm personally good at memorizing things, or I'm personally good at studying, or I failed at this test because I just didn't study the right thing. The test was really hard. I failed just because, outside factors that were out of my control. Didn't get good sleep, etc. But there are actually 2 studies done on this topic with video games, and how video games, people prefer for the failure in video games to be more because of themselves, which is kind of a twist on how reality is. Do you find this true for you, Savanah?
Yes. I think that's how I felt playing the game. At least, or I guess I personally didn't view it as like a failure. I more so viewed it as like a skill set that I did not have, which in a sense it could be a failure.
Oh, so you did see it as an outside factor then. You are blaming it on, I don't play these types of games, hence I'm doing bad at it.
Well, I guess when you said it, I more so was thinking along the lines of like blaming the people who made the game, of like they made it too hard. That's why I can't do it. I kind of felt like when I very first saw, like, as soon as the game like opened up and I saw that it was like this like maze style game, I had this like visceral reaction that's like the same reaction when I'm presented with a math problem, when I like get this like sinking in my stomach and I was like, oh no. Like, this is something that, which is kind of interesting because with math, like, for the longest time, I really just had that like frame of mind of where I'm not a math person. I just can't do math. It's impossible for me to do math. I'll never be able to do it. And it's like my own failure of my brain, I guess you could say, of not being able to do math. But now I'm like, no, I just maybe wasn't taught math in the best way, or I just haven't practiced math, or had an interest in learning more about math. And so I kind of like had that same approach with the game. So I didn't necessarily feel like I was blaming anyone. I guess I could still kind of feel like I was blaming myself of like, why didn't I ever learn how to do this before? But I didn't necessarily feel like I was blaming anyone. I just kind of felt like it is what it is.
I think that's a good kind of middle of the road approach, I suppose. I mean, I do find that when I do bad at something, like I miss a payment for my credit card, I'm like, ugh, I was so busy on XYD that I forgot about ZYZ, you know? Like, or if I do poor in a test, right? Like, I do sometimes attribute that to the outside factors of, oh, they should have gone over this material more. Where in games, I do feel like it is a safe space for me to fail and examine my own kind of skill level and my own practice and be like, okay, the game was fair. I just got to be better. So for me, that's where I kind of found myself in playing Celeste. Except in some rooms, I did kind of curse the creators and the developers and being like, oh, this is so not fair for me. But overall, I feel like I find that statement to be kind of true. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode that I feel like I live a main character life where when something bad does happen, I do tend to blame it on not myself at all, which could be good or bad. I mean, a lot of people say that you shouldn't blame yourself for a lot of things. I don't know how true that is, or how much we want to examine that. But for gaming, I do find that it is a safe spot for me to examine my own failure.
Yeah. I think I didn't. I think I had an issue of like a little bit of like a chip on my shoulder maybe. Just because
you are competitive.
I am very competitive. And I think I was having somewhat of like a weird experience because everybody told me that this game was going to be really hard, and also people told me that I was going to get frustrated. And so I was like, I don't want to get frustrated because everybody's telling me I'm going to get frustrated. And so I kind of just like took that approach, I guess, while playing it. Like I tried to just like keep my cool and just like approach it of just thinking again, like, okay, I can't get frustrated because I just don't know how to do this. And that's not my fault. Because otherwise in other situations, I think I do kind of do that. Like I will get frustrated and then I will blame myself for not winning something or not presenting something in a clear enough way or different things like that.
I mean, another way to think about it is you don't want a game to be unfair to you. Like you're giving yourself over to an experience where you are giving your most valuable resource, time, and you want to play something that is a challenge or is fun, and you don't want the game to be unfair just like life is.
I think I never really feel like that with video games. Unless it's something like that is very casual, like Animal Crossing. I think I just never feel like I'm gonna have a good experience. Or not that I'm not gonna have a good experience. I just always feel like they're not for me. Or not that they're not for me, I'm just not a part of that world. Therefore, I'm not going to enjoy it. Which is kind of unfortunate.
Savannah, that's like me saying that art is not for me, which I stood by for a long time, that art was not for me and that I did not appreciate art and I did not see the meaning of it.
It's
so that's what I'm hearing right now.
It's not that I don't want it to be for me. I feel like, okay, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this, and I don't know how much we want to get into this, but I do feel like initially I feel like I was gate-kept from games. And from that, I felt, which that can happen with anything. That can happen with books, that can happen with art. But I feel like, not to throw anyone under the bus, but like you and the rest of our family, they don't talk to me about video games. you guys are gatekeeping me from being a part of that group of people. And so I feel like I missed the boat, I guess. And I feel like there's nobody willing to talk to me or educate me in games, which maybe that's in my own head. Maybe if I asked you about it, or I asked my boyfriend about it, or anybody else, that they would want to like teach me, I guess. I have not looked into seeing what the resources are out on the internet of non-gamers wanting to play games. I don't know if those exist. I know that they exist for some other things. I don't know. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but those are my feelings.
Well, I'm hearing some attribution asymmetry here. But we can go ahead and move on to the assist mode and accessibility. So you mentioned earlier that you use your assist mode. I kind of want to know when you started to use it.
Within the first chapter, probably I don't know how many puzzles were in the first chapter, but I would guess maybe there were still maybe 5 or 6 left to go or something, and then I had already been playing across multiple days, that I was like, this isn't working. I have to try with the assist mode on, or else it's not gonna happen.
How did you feel when you went to assist mode, and what assist mode did you use? You said infinite dashes, right? Did you use anything else?
Yeah, so the first time that because I turned it off at a certain point. The first time I put it on, I just put it on with the infinite life or whatever, or not being able to die. And when I first started playing it, I felt like it was almost too easy. So I finished up that chapter with it so I could get through it. And then once I started chapter 2, I took it off and tried to play just normally again. But then I was really okay, I can't. I can't do it. And then at that point, I just put on all of the assists possible, so that way I could actually just get through the game. And I think there was a couple points throughout it where I did turn it off just because I wanted to see what it was like. But I inevitably just ended up putting all the assists back on again.
Did you feel like the challenge was still there for you? Do you feel like the message was still clear? Do you feel like you still lived that? Or was it still too easy in the end?
Yeah, no, I definitely felt like it was still a challenge for me. Again, just because of having to figure out different mechanics of how to jump on buttons and things like that. I still had to figure those things out. And some of the puzzles themselves are kind of maze-like. Those things were challenging enough for me at times, just because of my unfamiliarity with them. And the message, I think, still just made sense, just from a narrative point of view of the dialogue from the characters and things like that. So I don't really feel like I was missing out on anything necessarily by having the assists on.
So here's kind of the big question, the elephant in the room in all of the gaming community, and people are on either side, but it's, do you really play the game if you have assist mode on? Do you really play the game? Are you valid in playing the game? And I have my answer, but I kind of want to know your answer from a non-gamer perspective.
Well, so before I even started playing this game, and in conversation with you, Ryan, I had asked you if I could play it on easy mode or with assists, and then you gave me a vague answer about whether or not I should do that. So when I made the decision to put the assists on, I did feel conflicted about it because of that. I literally,
they do give a disclaimer, right? They say that this game is intended to be a challenging game, and they recommend playing it on normal mode for the first time through. But they still hope that you find a challenging experience even if you do have the assist mode on. So they do have that disclaimer.
Yeah. I was actually honestly, I wondered when I put the assist mode on what the purpose of it was. It was unclear to me if the purpose was to make the game easier for just generally casual gamers, or if it was also supposed to just make it more accessible in general, for people with different abilities, and maybe how that might affect them when they're playing video games. I feel to have those options on a video game does not lessen whether or not you are actually having the full experience of playing the game or really playing the game. I feel like that would just be another form of gatekeeping of games to say, like, you don't really do that. And I know, like, I have been guilty of having that mentality with things before. I still feel very guilty to this day of telling somebody in junior high that they were not a true Linkin Park fan because they did not listen to the explicit versions of the songs. And I still feel very bad about that. And I know that that's not true. So that, I feel like, is the same way that I feel about games.
I am really conflicted on it, honestly, because I do feel that sense of pride when I do something really hard without help. Especially because, Savanah, I am not a hardcore gamer. I really struggle with skill-based games. There are some games that I know I could never play, like Dark Souls. And Dark Souls is like a combat-y, dungeon crawly RPG game, and it requires skillful combat, and they do not have assist mode on it. They do not even give you the option. And like you mentioned before, you thought you were blocked off to some areas because of assist mode. Some games do have that, where they block you off, or they make your save file a different color because you used assist mode. Or they give you different multipliers for high score because you play in easy mode, or what have you. So I think there is just that pervasive kind of, in general, it does matter across the gaming board. Even when I tell myself it doesn't matter, I still can't help feeling that I'm proud of myself when I play something hard and I don't use help.
Yeah.
Or pride when I solve something in a classroom and someone else didn't get it and I can explain it to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think I liken it kind of to, like, sports or, like, other real world things where I feel like we should try to aim for, like, equity, I guess, and try to make things as, like, accessible and an easy playing field for everybody. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is, like, competing maybe on the same level all of the time, but I don't think that that, like, lessens anybody's experience. Like, I don't think it's lessening your experience to play bowling with the railings up on the side. Like, if you're just trying to play bowling just for fun. But some, like, professional bowling league people might say that that's not real bowling. I would say that that's just making it, what, you don't want kids to enjoy bowling then? Like, I don't know. That's how I'm viewing it, I guess.
No, I mean, my dad hated the bumpers. I feel like I really grew up in the you play the hard setting or you don't play at all kind of mentality. So it's going to be kind of hard to break, Savannah. Not going to lie. All right. So we've reached the summit. You finished the game. I mean, I didn't play the DLC right after I finished the game. I, like, waited a little bit. But that feeling of success, was it worth the journey? For me, yes. For you, do you feel like a better person because you beat this game?
Do I feel like a better person? No. I think I feel the same as I did after beating this game. I think I did feel some sense of just general accomplishment of beating a game since I had never done that before. I think, though, I don't think that was, like, specific to this game, though.
Do you feel like it opened up kind of a small door, perhaps, of, like, if I have the skill level to complete this game, which is notoriously hard, maybe I could beat something that's a bit more mild?
Maybe. I think maybe. I don't know. It was so hard, though, honestly. It was a little soul-crushing at times that, like, I don't know. I feel like it possibly could have discouraged me from other things, of it being a traumatic incident of playing the game. But no, I don't think it was actually, like, that extreme, but I don't know. I think it did maybe make me feel more inclined to just play more games in general that have, like, a beginning and an end, and, like, trying to go through that. But I'm not sure how much I want to play more of, like, these specific 2D style puzzle games.
Puzzle platformer.
Whatever.
Well, we can move on for that. I'm sorry I did that to you. I really thought it would be okay with invincibility and infinite dashes. I really did think.
I mean, I think it's kind of akin to you watching, like, all of Degrassi in the course of a short period of time. When I was up till 2 a.m. trying to finish playing this game and getting frustrated. I think...
How long was your playthrough?
5 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely akin. I mean, I spent like 24 hours watching Degrassi, so we're good. We're good. I mean, my second playthrough was like 6 hours, so you did better than me on my second playthrough.
Yeah, but that was with the assist. If it was without the assist...
Oh, see? You're up to...
But I'm saying if I hadn't had the assist on, it would have taken me probably at least twice as long.
I know, but you just... remember when you said that, like, we should compare everyone's different experiences on equal footing, even if they're not playing on equal footing, and here you go, trying to minimize your own experience by saying, oh, but I had assists on.
But I was saying that we shouldn't necessarily... Like, I don't think that you necessarily have to compete against other people who are in different leagues. Like, I don't feel like I'm competing with you for having a time. That's what I was trying to say.
Gotcha. Okay. Just making sure you're not changing your values on me.
No, never.
Kind of to not wrap up just quite yet, but something that I learned recently. Like I said, this is kind of a trans experience game, which I did not know upon my playthrough, and really nobody knew until the latest DLC came out, when it was confirmed by the creator Maddie Thorson. And I wanted to read this quote about why they took so long to not publicly announce Madeline as trans. They say, but of course, Madeline is a fictional character and we are her authors. People have rightly pointed out that there are questions we should consider about what harm we might be doing by hiding her identity. But we also considered what harm we could be doing by signaling to players that they are entitled to know whether she is trans, and that she is vitally important detail without agonizing over. Trans people shouldn't be forced to publicly identify as trans in a world that is often hostile to them, and they shouldn't be reduced to their transness. They should be allowed to live their lives how they want, and everyone should be free to explore their gender identity without feeling pressure to place themselves into simplistic categories for the benefit of others. So I just kind of wanted to explore that statement a little bit, because I know that some people did feel like the wool was pulled over their eyes because they were playing a trans game this whole time. And I mean, I don't think we're people that would feel that way. But do I kind of wish I knew from the get-go that yes, Madeline was trans and that she was like an icon, but at the same time with my own identity, I really don't believe in the concept of coming out and just like telling people like it's not for anyone to know or to be able to label me, you know?
I think that I'm of the mindset where it's not necessarily important information to have unless it was like important for the narrative of the story or something specific, because trans people are just people. They experience depression just like everyone else does. So to me, I feel like it's not necessary to know that to still like fully experience the game. I think it can add like an extra layer of like meaning and thinking behind it, and appreciation for it, but it's definitely not necessarily like, I kind of like seeing that sometimes in movies, and I'm not a trans person, so I can't really say on what this feels like to them, but I feel like I kind of enjoy when it seems like that's not even like a part of the story, like it's just who they are, you know, like it's not relevant necessarily. I mean, of course everybody's identity is always relevant to what is happening in their life and their experience or in a story, but if it's not like the main focus, I kind of enjoy that because that's life, you know, like people are going to have lots of other experiences that maybe don't have anything to do with their identity.
I overall agree. However, like Maddie acknowledged, representation is so important in media, and to have a trans main character, like that could have been a lot for people sooner, and not just kind of as like a little hints of it, because it's just hinted at and not even fully confirmed until Maddie confirmed it later at the end of a DLC. So I think it could have maybe been done a little bit better, but at the same time, I wholly agree, like as a person, you should not have to say what you are, like in reality, but in such highly influential pieces of media, maybe you should use that platform like that. but I'm not sure this is also a statement that they're making using this media and this platform to say that we are not entitled to reveal anything. So I don't know, mixed feelings.
Especially knowing that the creator, like, they themselves were possibly like struggling with their identity, or I'm not sure when it was that they came out themselves. So I could see how that would be difficult, or even just in like the creating of the game, like maybe they didn't want that to be what it was, and it wasn't until after the fact when they saw how popular it was that could be beneficial. Like maybe they didn't know that it was going to be so widely successul.
I think it's a great game. I'm glad for its representation in both the mental health field in video games and for the trans people who have worked on this. Like I mentioned, Lena Rain. Savannah, I just got to know the music, right? General thoughts? We can move on to that, right?
I did really like the music. That was like immediately I was blown away by the music in the game.
Yeah, the music is beautiful. I highly recommend listening to the B-side versions. And what's so awesome about that music too is that they specifically score it so that the loops don't necessarily just auto repeat the same thing over and over and over again. They're scored so that it'll start at different points and kind of scale depending on how long your playthrough is, so that it kind of matches your experience, which I thought was super cool. Like not all of the tracks that play in the game are on the soundtrack that you listen to if you listen to it just on YouTube. So that's everything I wanted to go over about Celeste. Do you have any other closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I think I'm glad that I had the experience. I feel like this is something that I have really enjoyed about the podcast, Ryan, is that like you have brought some new things into my life that I would have never experienced before. So I do like that. I like being introduced to video games in this way. The game was really hard for me, but I do have an appreciation for it. Both just like stylistically, I thought it was interesting. Like the narrative, like everything was new to me. So I really had an appreciation for that, and seeing how they were used, like this video game as a platform to talk about overcoming mental health issues, I thought was really great. So even though it was hard, I would recommend it to you if you know what you're getting yourself into. All right, so thank you everybody for sticking around with us and talking about Celeste. Real quick before you go, we do just want to tell you the rules about our giveaway. So for our giveaway, to get one of these special Pokemon cards, all you have to do is review us on Apple Podcasts, screenshot that, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel, screenshot that, and then follow us on Instagram, screenshot it, and then DM us your screenshots on Instagram with your mailing address, and we will send you a very special Pokemon card that represents your true aura and self. If you're not an Instagram person, don't worry about it. You can just do our YouTube channel and our Apple Podcast portions of the giveaway, and then you too can also get a Pokemon card.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us chat about a 4-year-old game. I appreciate it. If you like more content, you know what to do. Subscribe, ring that bell, all the things. And thanks so much for tuning in. Bye. And my first playthrough, I got 45 strawberries, and my second playthrough, I got 54.
On my playthrough, I got 61 strawberries.
Oh my god, Savannah, you're killing me.
My death count was 435 for just 3/4 of the first chapter. And then after that, I did not die.
My second playthrough has 1,564 deaths, which is close to the deaths count I had in the final chapter. Like it says, I'm proud of my death count.